Yeah, he's a very good friend of mine.
Welcome back. My guest have already started the conversation. Heritage start this morning and says IFS dissect 2017 media budget and makes key recommendations to government. That's the Daily Heritage. Daily Graphic says nursing schools giving quotas, admissions to go down. Government gives IGP 2-year extension of service and step-up fight against corruption. Professor Ade urges civil society at graphic photo exhibition. The Daily Statesman, President reveals big plan for the Western region, gold refinery at Takwa, fertilizer plant at Jomro. Those are the big plans on the Daily Statesman this morning. And no government interest in who becomes Kenya's president. That's the information minister talking there. The Guardian Times, AG to name shame looters of state coffers. A photograph of Mr. Domelevo here. He's the Auditor General. And then President launches mass cocoa spraying exercise. Daily Guide, Mahama girl slaps Rawlings like mosquito. That's a story. And 10 excavators burnt in anti-galamsey operation. The Nanado visit, President Nanado visit to Denchirabuase is here. I won't abandon Denchirabuase. The Today says CID to grill more appointees of Mahama. The finder, JJ is a hypocrite. He sees nothing good in another except himself, charges Valerie Sawyer. Photograph of her, the former president, and Martin Amedu. The Independent says, I never said I will ban mining. President Akufo-Addo talking there. And Togo opens border 24/7. That's a story on the Finder this morning. My guest to do the talking to my extreme left is the communications director of the CPP, Abdul Rauf Kadiri. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
I hope you're doing great.
Yeah, life could have been better.
And the black, there's a funeral?
Well, in fact, please permit me the opportunity to use this your platform to express my deepest and sincerest condolences to a friend and brother of mine who lost their mother yesterday, Honorable Eric Yabu-Anate. He contested with Honorable Boniface Abubakar Sadiq at the Medina constituency. He works with airport security. In fact, so I'm solidarizing with him. That's why I'm in black.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well with you, the spirit. Too grateful and welcome for the morning. And then a member of the NDC and a legal practitioner, Abraham Maliba, is also here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hope you're great.
I'm fine.
Thank you for your time this morning. And then I have also from the NPP, a member of parliament for the Asin South constituency, Honorable Reverend John Intim Fojo. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Bright.
And I hope you're good.
By God's grace, I'm doing very well.
We're grateful for your time, gentlemen, this morning. Let's start with the Daily Graphic. Nursing schools giving quotas, admissions to go down. The story is saying that public and private institutions accredited to train nurses in Ghana will reduce their intake by almost 1,600 this year. We're told that this is a directive from the Nursing and Midwifery Council to the 75 accredited institutions training nurses in Ghana, including private ones, to admit students in accordance with an earlier discussion. So the issue has been discussed already. We're told that the hardest hit, according to the paper, are public nursing training colleges and the universities offering nursing with a cut in admission figures ranging from 10 to more than 100 in some schools. So they mentioned, for instance, that Ntotroso College of Nursing has its last academic year admission figure of 235 cut to 82. Dunkornofin from 250 to 109. Whole Nursing Training College 183 to 108. Kolebu Nursing and Midwifery Training College 245 to 153. Kwadaso Nursing College 254 to 152. Tamale Nursing Training College 210 to 111. And Keta Nursing and Midwifery Training College 137 to 77. Cape Coast Nursing Training College 229 to 91. University of Cape Coast 100 to 75, University for Development Studies 123 to 97, and University of Health and Allied Sciences 125 to 80. That's the story so far. The other issue is that private universities are not happy. They are saying that as private institutions, they have invested huge sums of money, between 3 and 4 million cedis, in laboratory equipment and other training aids for nursing students. And they pay their lecturers between 3,000 and 8,000. So if you are taking all this cost and they are asking you to admit a limited number of students, this amounts to control. There should be no control in an educational sector where the government does not support you. This is a democratic era, and they should allow private investors to run their businesses. That's the story so far as told by the Daily Graphic. Kadri, let me start with you. This is from the Midwifery and Nursing and Midwifery Council, and this, we are told, is an agreement that had been arrived at early on at Koforidua after a meeting. We're cutting down admissions. Based on the fact that we need to train our human resource, this should be worrying for us. Should it be?
Yeah, first of all, let me say that the civility of a nation is best measured also by the respect and attention with which you accord to the sick and the aged in society. So it's really something that should cause for worry, in the public domain, where an attempt is being made to cut down the number of nurses trainees in the country. I believe that given the current rate of population of the country, where we are told that the population of Ghana is now somewhere around 27 million. And then in addition to a particular document that I chanced, I read an article not too long ago where it was indicated that even if we were to train, 1,000 nurses or more, we will still have inadequate supply of nurses to match up, the nurse-patient ratio in the country. So I want to...
We're told we need 38,000 nurses and midwives to bridge the nurse-patient ratio. That's from the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives.
So from the statistics that you just shared, clearly you would see that the need for more nurses to be trained in the system, that need exists. So then the question is, what kind of social policy could it be if we are to cut down the number of nurses who are being trained in our country? You have to also bear in mind that training more nurses certainly cannot be something that will be a waste, in the sense that if we are to learn from the experience of Cuba, you'll find that today Cuba even export doctors and nurses to other countries, and they make income out of it. So what is wrong with our system? And I have also made arguments in the past that given the relative political stability of Ghana, if Ghana were to be very strategic in our social policy planning, and were to make Ghana the education hub of West Africa, I believe that we could train every kind of professional in this country. And the people that come to study in Ghana will definitely make money on them. And if we also train our own people, we can export them to other countries within West Africa and then North Africa at large, so we can make money on them. So I do not think that is a good social policy that we should cut. The argument that we have heard is always based on budget. We do not have an employment. We are not able to absorb them. Then we have to come out with policies that will make it possible for us to export our nurses to other countries. I've had the opportunity to be in Liberia in several occasions, and even Guinea and then Sierra Leone. You will find that those places, their nurses, they have very inadequate nurses in the system.
Let me ask you this. The health ministry is saying that the country, according to the story in the Daily Graphic, the country had been training more nurses than it needed, and that after their training, they are expected to be absorbed into the various health facilities with government paying their salaries. So the Minister of Health is saying that we indeed have more than we need. That's what.
So that's why I'm saying that it even tells you the level of thinking of our policymakers or those who are in authority. We have countries which are very closer to Ghana. I just mentioned Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea-Bissau. Guinea-Bissau, for example, is almost a failed state. They need such professionals. Can't our government go into arrangement where we even export them to those countries and make money on top of that? But unfortunately, we haven't averted our mind to that possibility yet. So I am saying that, and even given the need, go to rural communities in Ghana. When you go to the north, there are still communities. There's a community called Overseas, which is very closer to Wali, where the vice president comes from. A community called Pasenpe. They still need to ride bicycles and cover long distances to take, sick people to hospital, even when a woman is pregnant. And the situation is much heavier when we talk about people who are living with disability when they are pregnant. They have to attend hospital and what have you. You find that it is still clearly a problem. So if you sit in Accra here and you compute statistics, you see that we have more than we really need. But if you want to be able to evaluate the reality on the ground, go to the rural areas and you find that the need is still existent.
I see.
So what do we do as a people? So the position that we would articulate as a political party is that we can never train more nurses. Even if we think that we have more nurses than we really need, let's export them to other countries and make income for our country.
I'm grateful. Reverend, government is saying that the current system or the current quota system is not a permanent one, and at any time there was a need to train more nurses, government will remove the quota and get more of them trained. Based on what Kadiri from CPP is saying, that why don't you go ahead and train them and export them? What do you think about that?
Good morning, and thank you, Bright, for the opportunity given me, and to also say a good morning to our cherished viewers and the viewers doing the viewing from Asin South constituency, and a special good morning to Commander Bacho, the Divisional Commander of Asin Fosu, and ASP Andam, the District Police Commander of Asin South. In respect of and also to join Mr. Abdul-Rauf in expressing our condolences to the families of our departed mother, the mother of Mr. Yeboah, our condolences to you. In respect of the regulation that has been spearheaded by Nursing and Midwifery Council to regulate the number of people that ought to be trained by both private and public institutions, every profession has a body that regulates the education of professionals and activities that surround the profession. And NMC is that legitimate council that is mandated to ensure that the training of health professionals in that specific category is well regulated in a manner that is orderly, in a manner that is strategic and beneficial to the nation. Of course, we all admit and agree that we still have some shortfalls with regards to the health worker to patient ratio.
Right. Particularly nurse-patient ratio.
We need
we're told it's 38,000
nursing to patient ratio, doctor to patient ratio. We still have a lot more to do as a nation. It comes down to finances. So fundamentally, much as we all appreciate that, the best thing to do is to so resource the sector such that you will have adequate facilities, adequate personnel that are manning the health portfolio to deliver, optimum health services for the good people of Ghana. We also are constrained, just as every economy may have their own constraints. So what happens is that fundamentally you have to plan, prioritize, and then see where to adjust and to plan in a way that will be able to across board optimize all sectors. With unfortunately, the details that will give the adequate grounds on which this regulation came was not very adequate in the story so far.
Right.
We are quite apart from
we're told it was agreed on in Kufuria. That's all we know. So
discussions had gone on.
Right.
Stakeholder engagement had gone on, and a number of factors, I believe, had been considered. I'm sure issues of capacity, even of the various institutions that are training, the capacity and to even train a certain number would also inform the regulation and the quota that were assigned, so that we also check that it's not just the numbers that we want to push through the system, but quality is not compromised. And that factor is also very critical. But again, I agree that if there's a way that we can increase capacity, resource them, and train as many, health professionals as possible, because we already even have a shortfall in terms of the ratio. Before we even look at the SSS, if there are, that we can have a long-term plan. Then, like I agree with Mr. Abdul-Rauf, we can exploit other opportunities overseas to see which partnership that are viable that we can form with other jurisdictions to make arrangements for the SSS to the surplus to also be engaged in that. I think we should be also looking at that angle. But the starting point of regulating it and ensuring orderliness is very important. You must start, as a baseline, you must start from somewhere, and then you regulate it, and then come out with, quotas that will be commensurate with various capacities that the private institutions and even the public institutions are training. I mean, on our part, from where we sit, if people are not able to, have admissions after the second cycle institution, there's a lot of pressure. It's on us all,
right.
Particularly when the students have passed their papers and they've done so well and have the prospect of, getting into the tertiary. it is worrying. And so I will appeal that we would have to, if this regulation has been accepted by NMC, together with engagement with other stakeholders and approved by, with approval of Ministry of Health, we need to further look at other options. One, we are in this country, and we all admit again.
Yeah, let me cut in and ask you. Now, this issue was quite topical during last year's campaign. With your opponent, the NDC, suggesting that you will restore the allowances and cut the admissions. Can we rule that out? That the quota is not being given because government is unable to fund the number of people who get into these nursing schools?
No, we cannot assume on that. That is why I sought for the basis. So I cannot provide that basis that informed the discussions that went around the table to arrive at this decision. But my concern here is that we have a phenomenon where a lot more people are being trained in the services sector, being trained for in marketing, in administration, in art, in humanities. And then we acknowledge that there is a need to strengthen the education of the technical engineering, the allied and health sciences, to ensure that we can, going forward, we have a well-balanced economy where, because actually it is very cheap to set up an institution to train people of humanities and administration background because of the logistics requirement, the laboratories that you will have to set up if it's a nursing or medical or an engineering institution. And that is where I feel that the Ministry of Education and National Council for Tertiary Education will have to engage stakeholders and investors in coming up with packages that will serve as incentives for people that will have to be trained in the technical, engineering, the health and sciences, so that year on year we will not just be having a lot more, even though, I mean, in most economies, the services sector is always a larger one, requiring more people to be trained in there. Then we can also be looking at the health sector and have a strategic plan. And now, as we are planning, we will know the capacity of the country to absorb a certain number of health workers that are trained year on year. And then, as we plan, how do we ensure that this number is trained? How do we ensure that the SSS are managed? How do we even ensure that we can churn out something productive out of the surpluses? And those who may, in a way, be disenfranchised in getting into nursing training institutions, what alternatives do we have for them? So these are the concerns that I have, that as a society, we need to take a look at. But it's a very important regulation, starting from this point, so that we regulate and we know that we have planned for this number of people. We have planned for them, so they come in and there are no issues.
And we can cater for their employment and all that.
Yes, and their clearances will not have to be outstanding for 6 years, 5 years, and then when you see all this picketing going on. And also to mark that this year, 11,000 clearance has been given for the employment of 11,000 nurses, which I think are fine.
All right, I'm grateful. Mr. Malba, so we're not told the basis. The Nurse and Midwifery Council of Ghana says that they had discussions in Kofodia. They had discussions. That's all that we're told. And Daily Graphic chanced on this story. He just said that it is good to use the quota system so that employing them will not be a difficulty. What do you think about these?
Let me say good morning to your viewers and say that if this policy is implemented, clearly it is going to worsen the nurse-patient ratio. Now, I heard you indicate that, I don't know whether it's a minister or it's anybody.
The spokesperson of the Ministry of Health.
The spokesperson, yes.
Mr. Robert Kudu.
Good. I don't know why government appointees cannot be candid to the people of this country.
How do you say that?
No, you heard that NMC is government appointee. Huh? There's a policy that is guided by NMC.
He's talked about the PRO of the ministry.
Yes, a spokesperson of the Ministry of Health.
I don't know why government appointees cannot be candid. You heard the Minister of Agri say that they've eliminated the army worm, when farmers on the ground said no, it is still in existence. Now, take what they are saying now. They want to reduce intake. And you ask the question, is it true that all our hospitals have nurses to the extent that when you get to the hospitals, you won't find a nurse doing 3 or 4 people's work? Yeah. And yet, you have a government appointee, official, telling us that we have so many nurses that we don't need to train more.
Yeah, that's what the health ministry is saying.
That is where they are not being candid. Go to the area he talks about. You'll find that there's only one nurse who may be doing 3 or 4 people's work. And then you come and say that, oh, Ghana, we do. The reports indicate that we have one nurse to 1,251 patients. So, when has the ministry breached this gap? And now they are telling us that we have more nurses. They should tell us. At what point did they breach the gap? And now it means that we don't need to train more. That's why this policy is being introduced. You'll be surprised to know that even at the time they were taking those intake, at the time they were taking the 210, and it has now been, yes, and it has been slashed to 111 for the Tamale nursing school, for example. You'll be surprised to know that that was even another cutoff, because so many people will have applied, but the schools will not be able to absorb all of them, and they'll cut them to these numbers. You are further cutting down the numbers, and you are telling us that, oh, Ghana, we have a lot of nurses that we don't need them. Can you imagine? When communities are crying for nurses, cheap compounds are crying for nurses, and then because you are a government appointee, you think you are wiser than all of us. Empirically, we go to the hospitals. Empirically, we go to the clinics, and we see how there's so much work for the nurses. I think that the bottom line for this cutoff is what you intimated, which is what? The NPP campaigned on the basis that they were going to restore nurses' allowances. Now, they didn't know they were going to win the elections. They've won the elections. There's now reality check. They've seen that they are unable to pay these nurses' allowances. So what will they do? Whereas we argue that let's take off the allowances and then we can get more people to train because we want to cut down on the ratio. Their argument is that no, you can still train all of this and then still pay the allowances. They have come. They've realized that it is not possible to pay all these allowances. So what they've done is to cut off or cut down on the number of people who enter the training colleges so that they can meet their campaign promise of restoring the nurses' allowance.
That is not a very...
No, Ref.
Reverend, I get you. You allow him to go.
I
get you.
very uncomfortable when you were talking.
Really?
But, yes. But I had to restrain myself.
Okay, you go on.
So, day in, day out, this government keeps changing the goalposts. On every promise they've made, they have changed the goalposts. They have tinkered with the promise they've given to the people of this country. That led to their victory. And now they are doing their own things. You said you were going to employ Ghanaians, give them jobs. You heard the senior minister yesterday, even threatening to remove people from their workplaces, that they will cut down on employment. After he has gotten his son to be at National Community Authority.
He said he will enable the private sector to employ them. That's what he wants.
Has he got an industry? He himself, what industry has he built? Osafo, tell us.
No, he's not.
I am saying that it is not. You see, let's not allow politicians to do what they want. You come and promise to the people, and then when they vote you in, you do something else. I'm annoyed this morning.
No, don't get annoyed.
You cannot
said that this is not permanent, and that when we needed you cannot
deceive the people. You generally should help people like us to hold the government accountable. You said one thing, you are doing another thing. Why are you doing that? Haven't you deceived the people? I think that we should not tolerate some of these acts by politicians at all. Because now, any politician who goes out there to speak, they say you are a liar. because of the antecedents of some people. We cannot all be lumped together.
I mean,
I think that
you have said the antecedents yourself.
if the government promised that he was going to restore allowances, that is what the government should do. But cutting down on the intake has a rippling effect on the health delivery system.
Let me see. I'll come, Reverend, I'll come to, but let me see if the CPP thinks same about this issue, because the story says that this could be linked to the promises made on these nursing training allowances in the build-up to the 2016 elections. Is that what the CPP thinks too? That government is unable to pay all the allowances, and so cut down the numbers so that you can pay?
Yes, certainly. If you are going to put it within the context of logic, it is telling. It's quite obvious.
A reasonable deduction will tell you that.
That mainly is the driver. But over and above that, I just think, as I said earlier, that it doesn't speak well of a good policy if we are to cut down the numbers, because I had made an attempt to draw best practices from other jurisdictions where, for example, I cited Cuba, saying that after more than 50 years of economic blockade, they were able to, still build one of the best medical systems in the world, to the point where they were even exporting, nurses and doctors to other parts of the world just to make income. So I am saying, therefore, that it is not a good policy. So if whether government is doing that as a smart way of obliterating his electoral promise or what have you, I do not think it is a good policy. We think that the government should expand the facilities so that more people who want to be nurses will be trained, so that we can help redress the inequities within the health
about one nurse
delivery
of 425 hours.
Reverend,
you seem to disagree.
Yeah, it is very important that in looking at discussing this issue, we don't just scratch the surface, but we engage in a detailed, in-depth analysis of this policy. If politicians are to speak the way Lawyer Maliba is speaking, then his concern that the public confidence in politicians will keep deteriorating. Because we have to be circumspect and be objective and look at what the real issues are. The issue is not just about cutting down 1,600 intakes just to be able to accommodate nursing training allowances, 1,600. The real issues are getting nurses trainees who are fully trained, getting them placed at the workplaces. For the past 8 years, how many nurses who had been trained did the NDC employ? And they will acknowledge that fundamentally it was due to government priority on the backdrop of financial lack of funding, adequate funding that were available to resource that sector. That is how come you will have people who will be trained for 6 years, 8 years, 5 years, and they have still not been able to earn clearance to be employed. Reverend, so it is not just about, and to state the fact clear.
I wanted to read a paragraph of the story.
I would allow that, but just to state the fact clear, that the NPP, President Akufo-Addo government, has not taken any U-turn at any of the promises contained in our manifesto. We are consistent with the implementation. When we talk about free SHS, when we talk about the health sector, when we talk about one district, one factory, when we talk about one constituency, 1 million. So I'm just expecting to hear one single policy that has been distorted.
Won't this be a logical deduction or the necessary
No, but it cannot be a logical deduction that cutting down 1,600 is because we want to avoid the payment of the funding.
Let me read.
Want to avoid the payment of allowances.
Let me read this paragraph to you. Now, let
us look at the system, the economy, and then we know the number of people. Fundamentally, the fact that over the years, that ratio that is a deficit. The ratio of nurse to patient ratio, the doctor to patient ratio has left us a huge deficit. Is because as a nation we haven't been able to allocate resources enough to absorb. Yes, but we all admit. And that NDC was in power for 8 years. What did Lawyer Maliba's government do to employ the people to fill that gap?
And that's why you're empowered now. And that's why I want to quote this to you.
And that's why I'm saying that we must start from somewhere and plan holistically.
The story is saying that
the people that are being trained,
to you.
once you're making arrangements for them, you also want to look at making arrangement for the
Reverend,
exorcist.
I
the
think
support.
that
Okay,
you-
government
so it should not be
argument.
politicized.
Okay,
it's
government
not every issue that we
argument.
politicize.
Reverend, government
This
argument
is a health issue
of,
that's very
employment
important.
is also captured by the story. The story,
Yeah.
the paragraph is saying that
if
Mr.
the
Robert
NPP
Kudu,
had made this
the
argument,
health
we
ministry
could have
spokesman, is saying that the issue of bonding of students, which made it compulsory for them to serve the nation for some years before they were released, had been cancelled, and that new students had been told that they were not automatically entitled to jobs. Now, this is the story. Now, if government concern was absorbing the numbers, and now that the bonding has been cancelled, then the students after training will have to find their own avenues of employment. Should government be worried about how many we train in terms of how we can absorb them?
Bright, can I make a quick intervention?
Put that one down. I want Reverend
Yeah.
to ask him.
Yeah.
I'll come to you. We should still be worried about it.
No,
That's for the fact
as-
that they are no more
see-
bonded and they can go anywhere to get jobs.
As a government, it is the responsibility of government to ensure that national policies are planned, and you run the national policy with manpower. The manpower planning is also very important, and that is the reason why in every jurisdiction there are every profession is regulated by a body, and it sets clearly the ceiling for the number of people to be admitted in certain programs, and it's done everywhere.
All right.
I'm
So
grateful.
that one is not a new.
Right. I thought Reverend will even shy away from talking about employment of nurses.
If you bring
I
it
thought-
on, if you
I
bring
thought
it
he would
on,
shy
I
away
will
from that.
respond. Bring it on, I will
Because
respond.
that area doesn't look good for them. What did they promise the nurses who were trained and were not having jobs under the NDC? What did they tell them?
And when we came,
What did they tell them?
7
Talking
months.
about 16,000.
There are nurses at the moment.
11,000.
There are nurses at the moment.
Clearance has been given for 11,000 in 7
There are
months.
nurses
How many
at the
did you
moment.
give?
There-
How many-
there are
How
nurses-
many did you employ?
Bright. Didn't we employ nurses
I'm asking you
on
to
the
give me
latter
the figure.
days
How
when
many?
they came and
Reverend,
revoked them?
you are not being fair to
So,
lawyer.
What is the problem?
Argue.
We
We-
will allow him to go.
So that
Okay.
when you finish,
Mr. Amala, please.
Bright, you see, they promise these nurses, and we are all in this country. We hear the picketing that takes place at the ministries, and when the voice pop, when you listen to them, they tell the people of Ghana that the MPP told them they were going to employ them, and that's why they are picketing. And so, if you sit on national television as a rep of the MPP government, and you say that it is because we cannot absorb the people, that's why there's a cut-off.
Have I said something?
That's what you said.
No,
It's because
no,
they cannot
no,
absorb them when
no.
they complete.
No.
Then you
Then
cut
you
off.
have to
Then
listen when I'm talking.
you are being
And
unfair
listen.
to
Bright
the
is here.
people. You are being unfair to the
Don't
people.
misquote me.
You are
Don't
being
misquote me.
unfair.
Lawyer, don't
What
misquote
about-
me. Don't
What
misquote
about
me.
I think what he's
Yeah,
saying
when
is
I-
that
when I'm
well,
talking,
the
you
policy
have to
should be
listen
shaped
so that you
with
can
the human
respond.
resource. So this is what the number government will need, and this is how we should control who gets into the training institution. I think that's the point.
I am saying that you promise these unemployed nurses that you employ them. Is it true or false? It is true. You have come and you are citing the inability to employ them as a reason for cutting down intake. That's the argument I'm making, which is very clear. And I'm saying that you are being unfair to those you hoodwink to vote for you. That is why voters are beginning to think that this government is a deceitful government and has not been contrary
to that,
would you make me
viewers
now?
are-
Will you let me make my point?
I get him. I get him.
The government is not being candid with them. I just asked the question. When you were campaigning and then you made the point that the NDC was not employing people, and we said that, look at the hospitals we are building. Look at the CHIPS compound. Look at the regional hospitals we are building. This is
Which
where
every
the nurses will
government
go. This is when the nurses will go. You said no. The fact that they were unemployed, when you come, you are going to employ them en masse. So, for you to then say that it is appropriate that they cut down on the unemployment because they cannot take them when they complete school, they cannot. Look, I know the Tamale Hospital very well. At the moment, the Tamale Hospital is understaffed. Tamale Teaching Hospital is understaffed. And you say that
There are a lot of nurses.
So what did
that is
NDC
why-
employ?
Can you come in?
What did
Let's come in
NDC
before
employ
we
the
do
family?
Can you
Hospital
tell?
is understaffed, and you ruled the nation for 8 years.
Can you tell this
8
reverend
years.
that?
What
Can
did
you
you
tell
do?
this reverend that?
What did you do?
The message is that
What did you do?
let's take away the NDC
How many
and
health
bring
workers did you employ?
to salvage the situation. Don't
And
be
we have-
going back.
And we have come.
Okay.
And in 7 months,
And what are
we
you
have
doing?
given clearance for
Okay.
11,000.
What are you doing? You are cutting down.
Gentlemen,
You are cutting
let me
down
get
on-
Kadu
we have
quickly
come
before
and
I
in just
get
7
Johnny.
months,
You
we
are
have
cutting
given
down
clearance for
on
11,000.
the number of people who are going
Yes.
to training colleges.
And I'm
Okay,
telling
and you are saying that you are doing
we
what
not
you are
employ the
doing.
nurses. and
We
have come.
employ them.
And
Gentlemen,
in less than
your
7 months,
microphones-
my argument
quickly.
was actually to
Quickly,
advert
yes. Johnny is with us.
reference
Quickly, and
mind
then
to
I'll
the
get
fact that even though ideally the argument that he was making, that's the ideal argument, but that is not the reality on the ground.
Okay.
So for example, the way that he's speaking, assuming that before the election, when we started and we're making discussion, if he were to speak the way that he just spoke, you think that they would have gotten the support of the nurses?
Which way? Which way?
Okay.
No, I'm just saying that, like,
Johnny, read some comments for us, and then
I'm saying that that's the ideal argument.
Must be employed.
I'm saying that
even the backlog
Reverend,
must be
that's the
It's not
ideal
surprising.
argument.
And then we
But I'm
must
saying
plan.
that the way
We
you
must know
argued
our
it,
capacity.
if you were to
Gentlemen,
argue that way before the election, you think that you are
Your
going to support the
microphones
nurses?
are
Check out
off.
some
Let
of
Johnny
us.
Hughes come in quickly. Then we'll come back.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Johnny, good morning once again.
Good morning.
Please take us
Thank you
through
very
some of
much,
the
Senior
comments,
Bright.
and then we'll come.
Lots and lots of them. And I'm sure we can stop sending them in from the control room now so we can flow with them. It says, good morning, Teresa. I like your show this morning. Kuku Johnny, God bless you. We'll talk about that later on. But it says, Nanaya Osafuma for Park. After employing your two sons as deputy director at SNIT and deputy director at NCA, you're telling the unemployed graduates who believed in the hashtag 419 MPP campaign message of employing all graduates that what? Government can't employ into the public sector. In fact, the cane that will be used to cane this dishonest MPP government is being soaked in kerosene till 2020. Hashtag Ghana deserves better. And good morning, TV3. Well, Bright spoke earlier. We'll talk about that one. Good morning, TV3. There will always be unemployment problems unsolved in this country if we don't allow people to go on retirement at 60. And if we claim because of projects they started, then they shouldn't have been a change of government. Kofi Whiteman, I'm sure you are referring to the IGP. Non-content. If dry bones come to life, then I encourage you not to give up in the name of Jesus Christ. Okay, I don't know which one you're talking about, but Allah one I was says, despite the inherited huge debt from the past administration, Nana Akufo-Addo's government has put in place many measures to create jobs and drive development. Adoption is a very good thing, you say. Thank you very much. And Abu Finance from Lambusi in Upper West says, I pray and hope that things change in this country. It looks as if we are hoping against hope. It could also be the case that Justice Atuguba gets appointed as Chief Justice and later be given 2 or 3 years extension. Let them consider their party faithful first in terms of job before any other persons. 2020, we go show Nana. And good morning, Bright Ama and Johnny. We love your show. This is Ashale from Mimpasa. The government should look at the direction of IT to solving not only this towing brouhaha, but the perceived police corruption on our roads. Simply integrating driver's license and roadworthy certificates with valid and operational financial accounts of individuals cannot do the trick. This way, drivers whose vehicles are towed for breakdown, as well as those who break down regularly, regulations can be automatically charged. Richard from Inswam. Good morning to your viewers. I don't think why day out is either Galamsey issues and killing of innocent people. Was this government purposely put in power to only deal with Galamsey? Meanwhile, senior minister said no jobs for Ghanaian people, even though they promised. But MPP government should know that Ghanaians are very mindful of all that is happening, and by year 2020, they'll be voted out. Good morning. How can Osafo make such comments about employment? Did we vote for private sector to give us employment? He was asking. The Galamsey fire should continue unabated, and even if that would make us lose the next election and for us to have a clean source of water for human consumption, I think God will be extremely happy with us. Thank you very much, Michael. I mean, in the UK says, this bombshell and the outburst made against former President J.J. Rawlings by Valerie Sawyer, who former Chief of Staff under former President Mahama, is very unfortunate. And this shows the severity of the cracks within the front of the NDC. And this may degenerate to deepen the internal crisis, you say. Thank you very much. Good morning. Please, I'm a concerned citizen living in Bolga. There is now there's no single traffic light in the whole municipality, and it's a pity to ride in and out. And good morning, Bright and your pundits. It's obvious MPP truly lied their way to power, because looking at how things are going currently in this country, I can clearly tell you that this government is very confused and incapable of delivering on its promises. Dr. Baumia always gives us true state of the nation address, even in opposition. It means they knew more about the economy before giving us these promises. So what's their problem now? And the arrogance at which they put their statements to our faces is very annoying. God save us. I'm simple from Cantonment. Wow. Laying people off and employing family and friends. MPP is just a chameleon government. Tony Dodo. And finally, Osafo Mafo is a senior minister. The son has been employed to Cocoa Board as deputy CEO. He should lay off his son first. 2020 is just at the corner. Let people go on retirement at 40. If we, and this for you gentlemen, he says, let people go on retirement at 40. If we are not employment creative, we will continue to suffer employment the more. Yusuf, a.k.a. Vim from Amobi. Right. You support the 40-year?
All right, Johnny, we're grateful. All right, we're grateful. Let's quickly wrap up on the IGP who's been given a contract for 2 years. Kadiri, let me take your thought on that. We're told that the IGP now gets another 2-year contract. That's the finder story. This means that the IGP will retire in August 2019. He was appointed to the position in acting capacity in January when President Nana-Addo resumed office and later confirmed 2 more years for him. What do you make of it?
Well, clearly, the report hasn't given us details, the basis as to why this particular decision was taken by the president. But if we are to do a cursory, analysis, it is easy for us to infer that perhaps maybe he has a certain quality that the president likes. The president wants to tap into his administration. So I wouldn't want to start by condemning it. Just that I was really intrigued when I heard one of the persons that sent text that if we want to widen the employment net of the country, then we have to get people to go on retirement so that other people would come into the frame. But with the idea of the, and I also, in fact, before I even came, I was discussing this issue with somebody, and that person said, oh, as for the IGP, he's a very good friend of the president. And for that matter, it is understandable why the president would extend his tenure, which is okay. My belief is that if he has a competence, he has the experience, given his profile that has been read to us, if he has the competence to do the work and the president thinks that he can add him additional 2 years, there is nothing illegal about it. I think that it is not going to be a bad idea. That is just the view that I would express on this matter.
Mr. Maliba, Mr. David Asante-Apietu has 2 more years to go.
I think this is not the first time. Paul Tewia, he retired honorable. He did not extend his term, or his term was not extended. But I think Mohammed Al-Hassan
too had it.
Then Kudalo too had it. This one, we have not been told why the extension. I know Mohammed Al-Hassan, they said that, like the texter said, there was this police community policing that he had brought into the system, so they needed him to make it have a sound grounding. The government said that he had started some police visibility, apart from the community policing, police visibility, and so they needed him to stay on to give finishing touches to it. But on this one, we have not been told why the appointment has been extended. But be that as it may, the buck stops with the president. So today, there's so much insecurity. I don't blame the IGP. I say, look, he's a president. So if he thinks that the IGP has performed well, looking at the situation, and he thinks that he has performed well, apart from protecting invisible forces from some acts that they are engaged in, they should continue. They should carry on.
Can be avoided.
They should carry on. I think that the good people of Ghana know that we need to be more secured. You find day in, day out, people being killed here and there are calls for the police to step up to the game. I think that now that he has got 2 more years, he would begin to put his foot down and ensure that he provides the much needed security that the people of this country need.
Grateful. Reverend.
Yeah, I must congratulate IGP, Mr. David Asante-Apietu, for the extension given him. And as I agree with my colleagues, this is not the first time that by dint of good leadership and diligent service, an IGP's term would have to be extended in the best interest of stability to ensure that the police service goes on and functions very well. On the, when as politicians, when we talk and we want to rope in propaganda at the least opportunity, we must also appreciate that there are a host others out there who see beyond the propaganda and look for the facts. When you're lumping insecurity at the president and all that, they know, and the available statistics show clearly that crime rate has reduced and it's declining. It's on the decline.
In this country,
yes. Crime rate is on the decline, and you have to check it. So the fact that there were few notable
government officials,
you have your chance. You have your chance. You have your chance to say, lawyer, you have your chance. So the fact that there were notable happenings that are of concern, which the police administration is on top, which I always refrain from trying to play, when somebody tries to paint a picture that there's been high insecurity in the country under the 7 months of President Akufo-Addo, I just don't even want to go in to compare some levels of insecurity even that led to the murder of even a certain member of parliament. But these are not healthy debates we want to rope in here. But I would want to commend on Mr. IGP, Mr. David Asiedu-Dartey. This is a man that is venerable, whose services in the Ghana Police Service and even in the international front has been distinguished. He was previously the Director General of the Ghana CID. And he was also the Director General of Research, at the Ghana Police Service. He had been engaged in 2007 at the Interpol headquarters in Lyon, France, as the Director of Special Crime Analysis. So, and he has also taught in UN envoys and institutions in Europe and other international assignments that he had excelled. He led an investigation portfolio in Liberia, in the homicide. And let us remember that there was an era where Ghana was bedeviled with this serial killing of women. About 30 women were murdered. He was the man who championed the investigation until the culprit was apprehended and prosecuted. So if honorable lawyer is not aware of the merits, the basis, the credentials on which it is important that for the stability of the leadership of the Ghana Police Service, Mr. David Asiedu-Dartey's tenure has to be extended, then this is the information. And also to add, that contrary to the impression that he's a friend of the president, let us look at the merits.
I'm grateful for your time. Reverend, that's what time would allow. Honorable Reverend John Tim Ford is a member of parliament for the Asin South constituency, a member of the NPP. Brahma Maliba is a legal practitioner, a member of the NDC. Rauf Adiri is a communication director of the CPP. Gentlemen, I have wrapped up the show. Grateful for your time this morning. Thanks so much for your comment. And those of you who stayed out there to part of the show, we're also grateful for sending your comment. Keep them coming. There is more for us on the show. Stay with us. We're back in a moment.